That is a complication, right? Particularly when you're looking at as an outsider. Everyone says this is an area that needs to be more heavily regulated, that regulations are not keeping up with the technology, but its very nature does it make it very difficult for lawmakers, for policymakers to be able to keep up.
Absolutely. So you're seeing at this level, it looks like an infrastructure bill. It's a piece of legislation that's dealing with roads and bridges, but now we're moving into a world where we're pulling digital infrastructure into that infrastructure matrix. The reason that's particularly concerning when it comes to these new asset classes of digital tokens is there's three primary concerns. One is around custody. So when we move to digital assets, they do not have the same ability for people who control those platforms to be able to moderate or report on what's happening inside their platforms, which is why you're getting a lot of pushback on the infrastructure bill from potential miners or cryptocurrency exchanges or DeFi platforms. They can't actually see what's going on. This is a part of a much broader concern that people should be looking at, which is that we are basically moving management of money and assets to code. So if code is picking up the baby, so to speak, then we need to be able to actually look at not just the people who set up these organizations, but we need to be able to look at the code and the integrity of the code itself.
Right. So how would that compare with having more laws and regulations here in the US with the rest of the world as well, given that cryptocurrencies really have no borders?
It's a problem everywhere. There's no country that's particularly nailed cryptocurrency regulation, and that's because we don't really know what these things are yet. What we could say are that they are digital twins of things that are happening in the real world. So that means they could be a legal contract. That means they could be a digital twin of how a car is running. That means they could be a non-fungible token, which is representing a piece of art. What we do know is they're not just money. We do know that they're not just commodities, although some are regulated as commodities, as you've seen with Bitcoin. So some places which are doing it interestingly and probably in a leading way is Liechtenstein. You've got FINMA as the regulator in Switzerland who's taking a new approach. And I would say you've got some leadership coming out of Singapore and the MIS, their securities regulator. But we don't know what these things are. And the primary reason is because they change over time. So they are assets that evolve. That's a new thing for the world to see.
Given that, do we need a global institution in order to be able to play regulatory catch-up?
Well, I think that we're leading that way. It's just we don't know what the actual regulator should be. For example, we have things like FATFA, we have things which are like you have the Bank of International Settlements. Those are where we have particular industries getting together. But because these cross sectors and industries, it's not clear exactly who that regulator should be. But what we do know is just looking down one parallel, for example, trying to sort out corporations law or trying to sort out IRS tax law, exactly as you see in this infrastructure bill, it looks like it's about infrastructure, but it has an implication on custody and brokerage for tokens. And that's a surprising thing. But we're going to see that more and more in every piece of legislation.
Natasha, do you think the environmental aspect of the negativity that Bitcoin and cryptocurrency mining has attracted as a result of just how much environmentally unsound energy consumption it uses, do you think that's a solvable problem? Because that feels like another kind of policy intersection where so far we've kind of seen more, I suppose, either a hardline stance coming from governments or just an inability to make any decisions.
Yeah, so the first thing I'd say is a blockchain is not a blockchain, is not a blockchain. So the blockchains we're familiar with are called public permissionless blockchains, like your big ones like Ethereum and Bitcoin. What we're going to see happening next, and we will see the rise of private permissioned distributed ledger technology based infrastructure, critical infrastructure, sovereign infrastructure for each country, where they will need to have data security, cyber security, legal certainty, and the ability for people to use that infrastructure. So same as we've had payment rails, we've taken good attention to our digitisation of money. We're going to start needing to see better public infrastructure that has a public interest component going forward. But they will be using the underlying technology of blockchain, which is distributed ledger technology. But it doesn't have that energy requirement.